Can you be a minimalist and a bookworm? Good morning lovelies and welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited about this video because I am going to be talking all things books, which I love. If you're not new to this channel, you know I'm an avid reader and it's a really important part of my slow life, but I also like to live minimally and live in a tiny home, which means storage of books can be an issue. So this week I wanted to chat a little bit about how I organise my books to make the most of the space, how I decide what books I want to keep, and also give you a full tour of all the books that are currently in my collection. So let's get into it. In terms of where I get my books from, the vast majority come from either the library or secondhand. So I really love to pick up books from charity shops. And I like to have a wide selection of books to read because I do read 1 to 2 books a week, so I do go through them quite quickly. Living tiny does mean that I have to be particular about deciding which books I keep, and I have a few guidelines in place that help me decide. Essentially, when it comes to fiction, at least contemporary fiction, unless I think I'm going to read it again or it has a particular sentimental value, I do tend to read it and pass it on. So either return it to the library, to a charity shop. I've got a really lovely local charity shop just up the road and I get a lot of my books from there, so it's really nice to return them to them so they can sell them again and get that money. Or I really like to pass them on to friends as well. My exception when it comes to fiction is classics, so I do like to hold on to classic literature. I'm a big fan of it. I started reading it when I was a teenager and have been really enjoying rereading some old favourites and expanding my collection. And when it comes to the classics, I love to get old copies of them, and that means it serves as something that I can read all through my life and keep coming back to, but also as like a beautiful decoration for my tiny home. I don't tend to keep that many non-fiction books, and I've really minimised that collection recently because I have created a digital library on my Notion, and that means I have a space where I can summarise all the key points, all the key information, and go back to it really quickly so I don't have to reread a non-fiction book. So I've got some that I go back to all the time because I've really enjoyed, like Cal Newport's books. He's got a book on digital minimalism and deep work. I love both of them. I've got a lot of information and learning from them, and now I'm easily be able to go back in and check those key points without having to hold on to the book. If you'd like to digitise your reading or interested in a digital library, I do actually sell that template on my Etsy store. It's a bookworm ultimate planner, so I'll link it down below in case you guys are interested. So now I'm going to show you all the different places I keep books stored in our tiny home. So these are 2 bookshelves in our tiny home, and this is where I store the vast majority of my books. So as you can see, it's not a huge amount of space, so I have to be fairly minimal. We are thinking of putting at least 1 more shelf here, as I would like to at least expand my classic selection, and maybe one up there, but I'm not sure how we'd get to it because it's already a bit of a mission to get to this one because these are just above our kitchen here. So how I organise them is essentially on this shelf I just have my classics on there, and you can see I've got some really nice old editions of them, which I'll show you when I do the tour properly. And then up on the top one there, if you can see, it's sort of a mix of other bits. So I've got a series there that I enjoy, some nature books and some more children's classics. And I'm a big fan of keeping books in baskets because I think they work well, they're functional, but they also look really pretty. So we've got the bigger basket here, and this stores my TBR. So these are the books that are yet to be read, and there's a whole mix in here. And then this basket, the smaller basket I mentioned before in why I enjoy reading, why it's an important part of my slow life in a video I did, so I'll link that down below if you've not seen it. But these are essentially the books that I am currently reading or will be reading in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and I like to have a mix of genres in here, so I'm not a person to read 1 book at once. I do like to read, or at least have access to, a multitude of different books. So at the moment I've got like this one on the go, and then I've got a classic, and then I've got some contemporary fiction in here. And I mentioned before that I do like to read seasonally because it just makes me feel more connected with the nature around me and really enjoy the books. So I'm now moving into my more autumn reading, and yeah, I'm really enjoying that. And I meant to say, if you're not wanting to get my full bookworm reading planner, I do now just sell the reading planner components, the reading planner page on my Etsy store. So if you just want to get a bit of a taster of Notion, if you're not used to Notion or my planners, then you can get that just in itself. And that to basically, I use it to list all the books I want to read, all the books I'm currently reading, and you can sort them different ways. So you can sort them by season. So I have like different lists for different seasons I want to be reading books, or by priority, genre, author, whatever suits suits you, and it's a really quick and easy way to organise reading and really fun as well. So I'll link that down below as well, just in case you're interested in that. I hope you've got yourself a wee cup of tea, because I feel like this is going to take a little minute, but I'm going to try and whiz through all my books. And as I've kind of indicated, this is sort of just a snapshot of what I'm reading, because I do move through books. It's kind of a revolving point. Some of these, like I mentioned, I probably will be keeping at least for the foreseeable future, but yeah, it's just a bit of a snapshot. I think I've got about 40 books in my collection at the moment, which is okay. I think I'm happy with that. I think I wouldn't like more than 50. I think then we just start to struggle, at least without any more bookshelves in the tiny home. So let's get through them. I've split these into different genres to make life easier, so I'm just starting with the classics. I've split out the kind of adult classics from the children's classics as well, because this is like probably the bulk. Now look at it, it's quite a lot, the bulk of my collection. So first one first is Wuthering Heights. I'm rereading this at the moment. It's the perfect autumn book, and it's one of my all-time, if not my all-time favourite book. And I have a blog post on my top 10 all-time favourite books that I wrote on my Substack, so I'll link that below in case you're interested in reading that. And then I've got some other books from the Brontes, so they are some of my favourite authors and I'd like to read more of theirs. We've got 10 at Wyford Hall, which I always feel is very underrated. I know everyone always talks about Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, but this is just as good as those two books, and it's really, really lovely. This is by Anne Bronte. And then I've done something that I'm like, oh my god, this is a bad trend to start, but I have 2 copies of Jane Eyre, mostly because I already had this really cute little copy here, which is lovely. It's like a little pocket copy that I really like, and it sits really well on my desk. It's really nice. I've got a really tiny desk and it's a really good size for that, and it works with my decor, but it's so small and the writing's so small, it's a bit difficult to actually read. So I saw this copy when I was back home recently with my mum, and it's another really lovely old edition of it, and I was like, I'm gonna have to get that one as well. So I don't know, it's a bit like, oh, but this is just a lovely size to read, so I'm gonna keep both for now. But yeah, it's a bit of a bad trend to start getting multiple copies of the same book. But Jane Eyre is one of my all-time favourite books, so I forgive myself for that. So in terms of Austens, I've actually read all the Austens when I was a teenager. I got really into them then. I used to have a collection, you might have seen it because I only declustered it recently, of all of the Austens in one book, but I never really reached for it because it was so big, and again the writing was so small, it was quite difficult to read. So I've decided to try and get them individually and maybe try and pick up some nice copies of all of them. I've got a couple of copies so far. So I've got Northanger Abbey. I just picked up this really like, it's still nice, but like a cheap copy of this because I want to actually read this autumn. I just feel like it's got a bit more of a gothic vibe, suits autumn. And then I got this copy of Pride and Prejudice. So this style of book, you'll see, I'm just going to go through them now. I've got quite a few, so this works really well in my collection. So yeah, these are the other 3 books that are in the same type. So we've got Picture of Dorian Gray, which I have read when I was a teenager and loved, and I can't wait to reread this autumn. We've got The Woman in White, which I've not read, so I'm looking forward to reading that because a lot of you said it's great, and I think this is definitely more of a winter read. And then Far From the Madding Crowd, which again, I can't remember if I've read it. I've definitely seen the film, but I can't remember if I read it. But I'm excited to get into this one because I really enjoyed the story. I only got this book recently, and it's probably my favourite book just from pure aesthetic point of view. Just look at that. Look at that, just the spine is just gorgeous. It's The Mill on the Floss, which again, I have not read any of George Eliot's work, so I'm excited to get into this. And then we're moving into slightly more tatty copies. So I've had this book for absolute years and read it loads, and I think I got it secondhand first time when I got it. So Gone with the Wind, classic, and again on that list of my all-time favourite books. Got Rebecca, again another wonderful book, and definitely up there in my favourites. I got this and read this recently, actually only a couple of weeks ago. I Captured the Castle, and I liked it so much more than I expected. I don't know why I didn't think I would like it, but I just absolutely adored it, and so therefore it has stayed on my bookshelf. It's a bit of a rogue one, but I think I will definitely read this again because it both is really enjoyable, but I really enjoyed the narrator style from a diary point of view, and I think that's really inspiring as a writer, so keeping this one for now. And then I've got a couple here that I've not actually read yet. So I've got To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, because I've not read any of her work, so I thought this would be a good introduction to it. And Brideshead Revisited, which I'm debating keeping till next summer now, because this was like a last minute thing to pick up for my summer reading, but we're now in September and it's not really the vibe anymore, so I'll either read it during the colder months for a little bit of like a summer escape, or wait till next year to read this. And then I've got a couple of Agatha Christie's. So I've got The Murder of Roger Aykroyd. And then also this lovely old copy of After the Funeral. And then the last three here, I went home recently, my family live in the Isle of Arran, and I pilfered through my granny's book selection. I did not know she had so many beautiful old books, so I got a bit overexcited, but I decided just to take away 3 with me. She did let me, she just offered to steal them, because these are books that I know I'm actually going to want to read. And they're 3 Charles Dickens, so I've only ever read Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, so I've been wanting to read more. So we've got the Pickwick Papers, this one here, which is really lovely. It's got that really nice old book smell. Am I the only one that loves that? Because my mum was smelling them and she's like, oh, it smells a bit musty, but I'm like, I like that. And then we've got David Copperfield here, and then we've got the Old Curiosity Shop. But the issue with this one is, unfortunately, it did get a bit damaged in storage. I think it got a bit damp and was stacked in a way that meant the binding's coming away. So I don't know, I might try and repair this. This is the one I actually wanted to read first because I've always wanted to read this. So if you have any suggestions about how I can repair this and not ruin it, please do let me know, because that would be really handy. So moving on to children's classics, I've got these 3 books here. So I've got Secret Garden, Anne of Green Gables and Alice in Wonderland, which are just really lovely copies. And I can't imagine getting rid of these anytime soon. It's a really beautiful, and I want to add a couple more. I know there's a couple more, like the Railway Children in this design. It'd be really nice to add that to my collection. And yeah, Anne of Green Gables in particular is one of my all-time favourite books, so happy to have those. And then I've got some old vintage copies of some children's books. So I've got 2 Enid Blytons. I've only read one of them. Read The Enchanted Wood in spring. And then I've also got The Mystery of Holly Lane, which I think would be maybe quite a nice autumn read. I don't know, I always think of Enid Blyton in like more the spring summer, but it might be quite nice to dip into that. And I do tend to keep take the dust covers off, because I really like the look of them without, but I do tend to keep them. And if I do end up keeping these, then I might do something crafty with those dust covers, because they are really lovely, but I just prefer to have them off on my shelf. And then I've got 2 of the What Katie Dids. I've got the classic What Katie Did, and I've got the What Katie Did at School. I think I read both when I was a child, but I haven't reread them, so I'm excited to do that. And then I've just got the Toad of Toad Hall. I really like to pick up some more Wind in the Willows type books, because I remember loving those stories when I was younger. Moving on to contemporary fiction, I actually wanted to start with a couple that I have actually now finished in the last couple of weeks, or last week even, and I mentioned them in my getting ready for autumn vlog, so I thought it would be worth telling you what I thought, and I love both of them. So The Glass House here was just fantastic, really well layered story, great characters, just ideal. A really nice August book as well, because some of the main bits of the plot do happen in August. And this, The Animals of Lockwood Manor, I inhaled this. I read this in I think 2 days. I loved all of it. I remember starting it and I was saying to my partner like, oh my god, I love every single thing about this. I love the characters, I love the setting, I love all of it. But yeah, I chatted a little bit more about these in that other vlog, so I'll link that down below. But just to say, both fantastic, really highly recommend these. And in terms of books I've not read yet, on my TBR we've got this one, Bookseller of Inverness, which is a bit of a historical mystery, and I first of all it said bookseller and I was like, well, that's ideal. It's also set in Inverness, which is our local city. I used to live in Inverness. I love it, and I just think the combination of this is going to make this a really fun read. I saw this come up as a series on Netflix, and I remember thinking, I think this is inspired by books, so I picked up the first one. I think it's in a series, One of Us is Lying, which looks like such a fun read. I can imagine I'm going to get through this really quickly, but it's a bit unfortunate because it means I'm probably going to have to read the rest of the series. I don't tend to buy many books new, but I did buy this one new because I couldn't resist. And then I mentioned these 2 in that other vlog as well, so I won't go into them too much, but I'm still yet to read The Secret History by Donna Tartt and Too Late by Colleen Hoover. Both are going to be fantastic for autumn. I always tend to have Marianne Keyes on the go because I just think she writes great stuff. I love all of her books, so I've got this one at the moment that I've not read yet, The Woman Who Stole My Life. And then I've got a couple that I'm keeping for my winter collection, so winter reading. So I've got this one, which is actually a collection of short stories. So that would be really fun. I am a bit of a wuss though, I don't like to read or watch anything too scary, so I'm going to give these a go, and if they're too scary I'll just have to redonate that one. And then this beautiful book here that just looks absolutely perfect for winter is The Winter Ghost, so I'm excited to get into this. I've got this book here, which is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, if not got your own copy. I just think it's beautiful inside and out, and I'd actually like to get some of these prints and put them up. I'd like to get a few more frames to put up around my bookshelves because just everything about it is beautiful. And I got this gifted to me and they got it secondhand, which is really nice because it's got like an original like inscription and then one to me on there, so that's really cute. And then the final fiction ones are ones I've kind of kept more for sentimental reasons, and this is this series here. It's the Chronicles of Ancient Darkness series that I read as a teenager. They are YA, so they are aimed at young adults, but I still love them, and I read them, reread them during lockdown, and it was such a good decision because I was like, yes, these are still absolutely wonderful books, and it's a series that's close to my heart, so I'll probably keep them forever. And even if I didn't want to keep them, I'd have to give them to my dad because he loves them as well. He read them alongside me when I was younger, so yeah, they take up a lot of room, but I think they're worth it. Moving into non-fiction, I'm going to start with my nature books. So that's probably the bulk of all my non-fiction reading is nature related books because that's what I enjoy reading, but also enjoy writing about nature, so it's good inspiration for me. I'm currently reading The Wild Silence by Raina Wynn. I have read her first book in this series, The Salt Path, which I highly recommend. One of my favourite nature books, beautiful writing style. I don't have it on my collection because I borrowed it from my mum. And I'm also really enjoying this, but I would say at the moment I'm preferring her original book, The Salt Path, but I do know she's got another book, at least one more book out, where she does another walk. So The Salt Path follows her walk on the south coast around Cornwall, like a long walk, and she's doing another one that I think is called Landlines, and I think it's based in Scotland. She's doing another long walk, so I'm excited to get that one after this. I got this one, so I actually got this book originally from the library, but it was highly requested and I just knew that I wouldn't get through it quickly enough. I do tend to read non-fiction slower, and with this one in particular I thought I really wanted to take time to ponder each chapter. It's not the sort of thing I want to rush, but it's Braiding Sweetgrass, and it's one that I've heard about absolutely loads. I think it's a memoir slash sort of informative book about different plants, so it mixes indigenous wisdom with scientific knowledge and teachings of plants, and it's like nothing I've ever read. It's beautifully written, so I did get myself a copy of this to hang on to and read hopefully in the next few weeks. And then I've got two Jim Crumley books. He's one of my favourite nature authors. He's a Scottish nature author. I've got The Nature of Autumn, Nature of Winter, both fantastic. Probably prefer the autumn because it's my favourite season. I've also read The Nature of Summer that I got from the library and intend reading The Nature of Spring next year, but I think I'm just going to hang on to these two for now. And then I mentioned this book in that other vlog about reading because it's one I did as part of a collaboration, but this is Regeneration, and one of my favourite nature books, and I'm actually in it because I had a re-interview when I used to work as a conservationist, and it's set in Scotland, and it's really just a nice story. And then just to say, I've got a couple of reference books here. They're not really nature, well, they are nature books, but I've got a Collins Bird Guide and my Wildflower book. Almost there, guys, promise, just 3 more books to go. So these are my other miscellaneous non-fictions that are on my TBR. So I picked this one up in a charity shop the other day because I've heard great things about Dolly Alderton's writing. I think she's meant to be really funny, and this is her memoir. I don't know, I think she might have more than one memoir. I'm not sure which one this is, but I'm excited to read this. I love reading memoirs. And then I also got this in charity shop the other day, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I've heard great things, and this has been on my TBR list for a while now. So I think it's about a woman that goes through a transformation in her life and is discontented and starts living a life just for her. I don't really know the details, but I'm sure it will be a really good read. And then I was gifted this kindly. The author got in touch and wanted to send me the book. So it's Once Upon a Time We Ate Animals by Roanne van Voorst. Sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing her name there, but it's essentially written from like a dystopian future about a time where we no longer eat animals in this future, and it's looking back, and it's kind of looking at, she's vegan, so it's kind of looking at an alternative world, an alternative future where the world is vegan as well. And obviously I'm vegan and I'm very passionate about that kind of lifestyle, so I think this will be a really interesting read. My home is now in absolute chaos because I've got, oh, and Pie, Sky's there as well. So people ask, I call Sky Pie because I don't know why. It's like, does anyone else call their dogs like their nicknames and it just sort of sticks? But yeah, I've got to put all these books back now. But I hope you enjoyed this wee book tour, and yeah, I really enjoy watching these videos. So yeah, I just love seeing what everyone's got on their bookshelf. And remember, if you did want to check out my Notion reading planners, then I will link those down below. But other than that, I will see you guys next time.